It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and welcome to a brand new year, 1991. And how do you start off 1991? Well, you take one last look at the movies from 1990 that Box Office Mojo, I should say, decided not to put on their list, so you have to go to Wikipedia to find out some of the movies that came out then. Some of the more notable movies, I should say, and there are 8 movies here, and I showed them off yesterday. So, we got a lot of movies to get to here. There's no new releases that came out on the weekend of January 4th, 1991, so let's go ahead and jump into some of these 1990 leftovers. And we're going to start off with probably the biggest of those releases, which actually came out on the 14th of December 1990, and that was Robert De Niro and Robin Williams in Penny Marshall's Awakenings. Yeah, kind of like movies like Come See the Paradise and The Long Walk Home. Awakenings, it was the best received of the 3 movies I just mentioned, but it didn't really get a big Oscar push, quite honestly. It was one of those movies where everyone thought it was going to be an Oscar contender. It was going to be another one where Robert De Niro and Robin Williams would get nominations, which I'm trying to see here. Well, Robert De Niro did get a Best Actor nomination, and this did get a Best Picture nomination, but Penny Marshall didn't get nominated. Neither did Robin Williams, and the only other nomination it got was a screenplay, and that was about it. Those were the only 3 nominations that it had. But yeah, like Come See the Paradise and The Long Walk Home, it's one of those movies that looks like an Oscar bait type of movie. It looks like a very cliched movie, but you really gotta watch the movie. And Awakenings really is a lot better than I think a lot of people would have given it credit for, and it is because of these great people coming together with a really good story to tell. You know, you got Robert De Niro, you got Robin Williams, you also have a really good cast all around. You've got John Hurd, Julie Kavner from The Simpsons, Penelope Ann Miller, Max von Sydow. There's also cameos from people like Dexter Gordon from Around Midnight, Bradley Whitford, Peter Stormare, Vin Diesel in his earliest film role, Vincent Pastore. You also have Ruth Nelson here. Just a great cast all around, and a great script by Steven Sicilian, who would later go on to write the scripts for several other Oscar contenders, including Schindler's List is probably the biggest one. He also wrote The Irishman, Moneyball, Gangs of New York, just these great movies all around, and Awakenings was one of his first real movies where he became noticeable. He also wrote The Falcon and the Snowman, which came out a couple years before this. But yeah, this is an overall really good movie. It's a great movie where you have all these great performances coming together. You have a really good story to tell based off of the book by Oliver Sacks. And the performances really do carry this over. Like Robin Williams gives one of his best performances because he's not doing the typical Robin Williams stick like he did with Good Morning Vietnam and Dead Poets Society, which could be very funny, but it wasn't really a whole lot there that really was worthy of an Oscar-nominated performance. I mean, this is a performance where Robin Williams is at least trying for a more dramatic role, and I think it works very well for him. It's a shame he didn't get nominated, because his speech at the end alone should have been enough to get him an Oscar nomination, but this is a good movie. You really do like the characters in this. You like the chemistries that Williams has with Julie Kavner's character. You also like the chemistry that De Niro has with Penelope Ann Miller's character. It has this nice look to it. It has a very somber tone, but an uplifting tone for most of the movie. It's a really good film. It's a movie that I think a lot of people should definitely check out more, which I think they do, but it's a shame that it didn't get enough attention back in 1990. I mean, this movie really could have been a big Oscar contender, because it really is one of the best movies that came out in 1990. It's a really good film. Can't recommend it enough. Awakenings, fantastic film. Highly recommend checking it out. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie on this list here, and that is Larry Cohen's The Ambulance. Such a cornball movie, but I gotta tell you, I love the heck out of this movie. I saw this movie, and I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie for just how silly, how ridiculous, but also just how it's insane. It's insane how this movie can play itself out so seriously, but at the same time, it can be this serious dramatic thriller about this killer ambulance and these people that are killing these people out of the blue, and it just works surprisingly really well. This is Larry Cohen, who also directed another leftover film we looked at in '89, which was Wicked Stepmother, which had some good ideas to it, but I think this movie really shows what Larry Cohen could have done as a director. And unfortunately, the movie didn't do so well. It's been largely forgotten, but has grown a recent following over the years thanks to Shout Factory's Screen Factory division putting it out on Blu-ray, which is how I saw the film. And I mean, it's a ton of fun. Eric Roberts is in this. James Earl Jones is in this movie, and they know what kind of movie this is. You also got Red Buttons. You also got Janine Turner from Northern Exposure in this. Eric Braeden. Now I can't remember if he was on if he was on Young and the Restless. Yeah, Young and the Restless. I never watched Young and the Restless, but I know that name sounded familiar. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a fun, silly movie. Stan Lee actually has a cameo in here too, I should say. Like I said, it's a fun movie. It's a silly movie. It's ridiculous. It's what I wanted Wicked Stepmother to be, quite honestly. And yeah, that's my thoughts on The Ambulance. Now let's get to a much more serious movie, and that is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, starring Michael Rooker. So yeah, this movie was one of the reasons why there was an X rating introduced in 1990, the other being Henry and June. But this has an interesting history behind it. This movie was actually shot in 1985. It actually premiered at the Chicago International Film Festival in '86 and played in other festivals throughout the rest of the decade. And then when they showed it in theaters at midnight screenings across the country, by 1990 they finally decided to put it out in theaters in limited national release. However, because the movie was so known for its controversy, it didn't have a huge release. It did have a limited release in an unrated version. It was actually shot on 16mm in less than a month, cost $110,000, and even after it was finally released to the public, it still had notable cuts to it that happened after the movie was even released. So yeah, it had a troubling history even after it came out in national release. I've only seen a little bits and pieces of it, but honestly, it definitely looks like it lives up to its name, but it also looks like a really good psychological horror thriller. I mean, Michael Rooker the scenes I've seen him in actually look like he's really given it his all, given this strong performance in this movie. It definitely shows in the little bits of footage that I've seen from this. I haven't seen the movie in full because largely I haven't been able to find a copy of it, but yeah, I would believe the people that say that this is one of the most disturbing movies ever made, and worthy of this controversy that it has behind it. But that's really the point of it. I mean, it's a movie that's basically in the title. It's a portrait of a serial killer. It's about this guy who gets motivated to be like the what am I even saying? He basically has to talk with this other guy who's also a serial killer in the making, and just the things that they go through in this movie from the little bits I've seen. I mean, this is a movie I would actually like to see at some point. I'm not going to rush out to see it, but it definitely has a lot of promise, I should say. So maybe one day I might check it out, but right now, yeah, from the little bits I've seen, it definitely looks very promising. So Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that's the next movie on that list. But now let's get to another movie on the list, which is back to a far different end of the spectrum. The spoof comedy A Man Called Sarge, starring Gary Kroeger. From the same genius mind that brought you Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 and also the Harlan Williams Rocket Man. Yeah, if Gary Kroeger's the biggest star in your movie, chances are this is not gonna end pretty well. I mean, other than him, you've got Mark Singer, you've got Jennifer Runyon, you've got Bruce Jenner is in here playing himself. Don LaFontaine is the narrator in this. And Natasha Lyonne actually makes her first credited film appearance in this as a young Arab girl. And she was actually living in Israel at the time. So I guess that's interesting. But other than that, though, yeah, this movie looks pretty bad. I mean, this looks like a movie that many spoof movies at the time were trying to copy the Zucker formula. But really, the Zucker brothers had that strapped down to a T that it's hard for other movie studios to really try to copy that. We saw that many times during that year with Ski Academy and then Repossessed, and now this movie. Yeah, it just didn't work. You can see why it's kind of unknown. I don't even think it has a DVD release now. I think it only has been released on VHS, but yeah, there's probably a good reason why. So that's A Man Called Sarge. Acknowledge that movie exists. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Corbin Burnson and Ann Archer in Love at Large. Another one that I haven't really seen, but I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to think that I know what's going to happen and what the twist is going to be, but at the same time, I do like this concept here. Apparently, this is a movie that's set in the present, but it feels like the past, so it has the feeling of like a 40s detective movie, but set in the 90s, so I don't know, it could be interesting. It's got a good cast involved. Tom Berenger, Elizabeth Perkins, Ann Archer, Kate Capshaw, Annette O'Toole, Ted Levine, Neil Young, Ruby Dee. Just a great cast all around here, and I don't know. I mean, it has some potential. I mean, it looks like a movie that may go the route that you might think it might go. I mean, that's what I was thinking when I saw this trailer. I honestly think that, having not seen this movie before, looking at it, I would think that either Ann Archer's the person who's involved who did most of this, or it's Elizabeth Perkins' character. But like I said, who knows? Maybe it's something completely. Maybe I'm just missing something altogether. But I don't know. It might be worth checking out one day. I mean, it's directed by Alan Rudolph. Alan Rudolph is a guy that has done some decent stuff over his career, like stuff like no, I can't remember what he did. I thought maybe Alan Rudolph did some stuff. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page just to make sure, just to see what he did, and I'm not seeing anything notable here, unless I'm missing something altogether. But, well, Alan Rudolph directed, but I don't know. I'm just going by the trailer. Maybe it's got some potential here. I'm sorry, I gotta be more prepared for this stuff, man. But anyway, that's Love at Large. It's a movie that exists. Did I even say Tom Berenger? I think it said Corbin Burnson. I'm thinking of Corbin Burnson, not Tom Berenger. I don't know if I said it or not, but I'm so confused right now, and I could just redo this all over again, but screw it. It's a movie I haven't seen before, so I can't really comment on it. So let's just get that out of the way. Let's just go to the next movie, and that is Side Out. Or as this movie should be called, the volleyball scene of Top Gun meets Point Break meets every bad 80s and 90s beach movie. I mean, wow, they aren't even hiding the fact that they're just ripping off so much from different movies. I mean, they even took the Playing with the Boys song from Top Gun, for God's sake. This is also the last film produced by Aurora Pictures, the company that, when they started, they co-produced The Secret of NIMH, which is easily their best movie, because they also did Heart Like a Wheel, the two Eddie and the Cruisers movies, and Maxie, and as you can tell, not many of those movies are really memorable, and except for The Secret of NIMH, of course, which is a classic movie on so many levels, one of my favorite movies of all time. But yeah, Side Out, it's a movie that exists, and it's basically, like I said, pretty much every late 80s, early 90s sports movie mixed with again, the volleyball scene from Top Gun and Point Break, kind of. Yeah, I really don't know too much about this movie, so just wanted to acknowledge that it exists. It also has Courtney Thorne-Smith and Harley Jane Kozak, so that's something, I guess. And I've got nothing else for us, so let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. I'm doing wonderful today, by the way. Let's go ahead and move on to the next film. Sandra Bernhardt's Without You, I'm Nothing. So this is basically just a staged version of the off-Broadway show that Sandra Bernhardt did back in the day. And it does and I will say this, it's a very interesting movie. It's one of those movies where it looks like it's trying to be another Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy stand-up movie where they're trying to mix a scripted material with unscripted material. But I will say this: it does look pretty interesting. It's a movie that I think does have a lot more potential than some of these other stand-up movies that we'd later get. Like, it's No Dice Rules, which comes out in '91. We'll eventually get to that one, and you'll see why that one doesn't work. But I don't know. This one looks like it could be a ton of fun. Plus, I like Sandra Bernhard. When she's on screen, she usually is very likable, and she does have a ton of funny moments on screen. Not all the time she was used pretty well, but I mean, for the most part, whenever she's on screen, she actually is really funny, and I do like her comedy a lot and her style of comedy. So, I mean, yeah, this could be something that could be a lot of fun to watch. So I'll definitely check that one out at some point. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Tommy Chong's Far Out Man. You know, it's funny how the tagline for this movie is "No brain, no pain," because this movie looks like it was written by a guy with no brain and has no pain to him. What the heck was that? I mean, this is weird even for Tommy Chong. I mean, Tommy Chong, him and Cheech and Chong have made some weird comedies before, but they were at least looked at least funny. This movie just looks bizarre on so many levels. So an aging hippie goes on a road trip in search of his long lost family. He meets his son, played by Tommy's real life son, Paris. They go off to see America. A majority of Tommy's real life family have roles in here. Rae Dawn Chong plays herself. His wife Shelby's in this as an ex. Cheech Marin is also in this movie. He makes a cameo. But, yeah, I couldn't tell you if this is any good or not, because this looks so weird. It looks so bizarre. It's just, it's insane looking. I don't know what they were going for here. I mean, like I said, Cheech and Chong have made some weird comedies that were funny, but I don't know. There's stuff that they did separately didn't really turn out that well. I know Cheech Marin did Born in East LA, which wasn't all that good. And this doesn't look really all that promising, at least to me. I mean, who knows? Maybe it has a cult following because it is Cheech and Chong can be very funny together. But, I don't know. This is one I'm not going to rush out to see, but I do at least acknowledge that it did come out in 90 and deserves to at least be talked about as a notable film in 1990, so there you go. That's Far Out Man. And I've got nothing else for you on that one. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies as we finally get into the 1991 releases. On our next episode, we'll take a look at Lionheart. We'll also take a look at the Sally Field drama Not Without My Daughter. And we'll also look at Warlock. So the first three movies of 1991 we'll definitely take a look at the next time we meet. But until then, thank you guys for watching. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the previous episode and then take another look at the 1990 playlist of episodes on the bottom. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the start of the 91 movies as we also begin a brand new month in July. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And until then, take care.